You know that feeling when you're heading out the door and you flip on the radio or a playlist for your cat? Yeah, a lot of us do that. We hope it keeps them company, but does our music actually do anything for them? Today, we're going to dig into the fascinating science of whether music can genuinely calm our feline friends. And trust me, the answers might surprise you.
So let's start with the one big question. It's probably on every single cat owner's mind.
I mean, does your cat really enjoy Taylor Swift as much as you do, or is it just noise? Well, it turns out sound definitely has an effect on them, just maybe not in the way you'd expect.
So back in 2015, a study started to pull back the curtain on this. Researchers played different kinds of music to cats that were anesthetized for surgery, and they measured their physical responses. And the results were pretty wild. Classical music led to the calmest state. Heavy metal, on the other hand, well, let's just say AC/DC's Thunderstruck wasn't exactly creating a Zen vibe. This was huge. It proved their bodies were reacting to sound, even when they were completely out of it.
So that leads to a really important question, right? If they react so strongly to our music, are we even playing the right stuff for them? The science suggests that to really connect, we need to understand why cats need their own custom tunes.
And this is where we get into this really cool concept called species-appropriate music. The big idea is that for music to really work for another animal, it can't just be our music played a little louder or softer. It has to be composed from the ground up using their biological language.
And here's the biological why. Just look at these numbers. A cat's hearing can go all the way up to 85,000 hertz. Ours? We tap out around 20,000. That means they can hear the high-pitched squeaks of a mouse that are totally silent to you and me. Plus, they have 32 muscles controlling each ear. 32! They can pinpoint sounds with just incredible precision. They are literally living in a completely different world of sound than we are.
This all feeds into what's called the universal theory of music. The composer David T. came up with this. Basically, the theory is that species are hardwired to find comfort in the sounds they hear very early in development. For a human baby, that might be a rhythm that's close to a mother's resting heartbeat. But for a kitten, the first comforting sounds they know are the vibrations of a purr and the rhythm of suckling.
So what's in this bioacoustic recipe for cat music? Well, first, it's pitched about an octave higher than our music to match how cats vocalize. The tempo is based on the super fast pulse of a purr. We're talking about 1,380 beats per minute, and it's layered with rhythms that mimic the sound of suckling. It's music that's literally engineered to speak to a cat's biology.
Okay, so what does this stuff actually sound like? Honestly, this quote from Smithsonian Magazine just nails it. It's like a slow Sigur Rós song played in the belly of a purring cat. It's kind of ethereal, it's high-pitched, and it has these really fast, purr-like trills happening underneath. You can tell it's music, but it has these elements that are just unmistakably feline.
Okay, so the theory is amazing. But does it actually work in the real world? Let's see what happened when this music got put to the test. From everyday homes to the dreaded vet clinic.
All right, so the first big test came in 2015. Researchers went into almost 50 different homes and basically gave the cats a choice. They played them some classical music, and they played them two of these new cat-specific songs, just to see which one, if any, they'd react to.
And wow, the results were pretty clear-cut. The cats walked over to the speakers playing their special music way faster. We're talking about a minute faster on average. Not only that, but they showed a lot more positive behaviors like purring or rubbing up against the speaker. They were basically voting with their bodies, and they chose their own music.
Okay, but what about a really high-stakes situation? A 2019 study at LSU decided to take this to what is probably the ultimate cat stress zone, the vet clinic. The question wasn't just, do they like it, but can this music actually reduce their stress during a physical exam? And you can see the results right here. The researchers used this standardized cat stress score and compared three groups. One heard the cat music, one heard classical, and one heard, well, nothing. And the difference was pretty obvious. The cat music group scored way lower on the stress scale.
Their average score was this, a 2.
So what does a 2 even mean? Well, that's the key. A score of 2 means weakly relaxed. The other two groups, they averaged a 3, which means weakly tense. Now look, that might sound like a small change, but it's a statistically significant shift from tense to relaxed. And in a vet clinic, that can make a world of difference.
Okay, but before we all rush out and create a cat-specific Spotify playlist, it is really important to put all of this in context and consider the limitations.
I love this quote from feline behaviorist Dr. Mikkel Delgado because it keeps things real. She said, "It wasn't like this is a game changer. Music is not going to fix your handling methods for cats." Basically, the effect is real, but it's a subtle one. It's not a magic wand.
Really, the best way to see this is as one tool in a bigger fear-free toolbox. Vets and owners use all sorts of things, right? Non-slip mats on the exam table, putting a towel over the carrier, keeping wait time short. All these things add up to lower a cat's stress. The music is a great addition to that strategy. It just doesn't replace it.
So how can you actually put all this information to use for your own cat? Let's get into some practical tips for your very own feline-friendly toolbox.
Okay, so if you're gonna try this at home, here are a few best practices to keep in mind. First, remember their ears are super sensitive, so keep the volume low. It should be audible, but definitely not loud to you. Second, put the speaker somewhere they like to hang out, but not right next to their ears. And finally, try to cut down on other loud, jarring noises in the house. Give the music a chance to actually work its magic.
It's also really helpful to see where music fits in with other common ways to reduce stress. You've got acoustic therapy, the music we're talking about, which is super easy and non-invasive. Then there are synthetic pheromones, which are also simple, but they can be a bit hit or miss. And then you have something like the medication gabapentin, which is really effective for serious anxiety, but that requires a vet's prescription. They all have their place.
And the great news is, this stuff is actually pretty easy to find now. You can get David Tay's original compositions, you can find specialized speakers, and there are even apps like Relax My Cat or Zounds that have playlists ready to go for pretty much any situation, whether it's a thunderstorm or you just leaving for work.
And all of this really brings us to a final, bigger idea. We tend to build our environments, our homes, around what we see and hear. It's natural. But this research kind of pushes us to ask a really interesting question. What would our shared world look and sound like if we started designing it not just for our senses, but for theirs too?